Hello, it's the middle of March now and there's all sorts going on in the greenhouse and out in the garden. The weather has really warmed up. In fact, it's actually warmer than it's supposed to be. There's a surprise. So we've not really had a winter. We've had a few frosts, but we've had no snow down here in the southeast of the UK. And I mean, we do live very close to the coast, so the likelihood of us getting a frost is usually quite rare anyway, but it's just not been cold. But the fact that we've not had snow, and where we live, even though we are close to the coast, usually the southeast does tend to get some snow, but we've not had anything at all. So the plants are all going a little bit bizarre outside. They're growing and which is great, but they're doing things that some are an awful lot further ahead than they should be. So I've got tulips which are just starting to open soon. They shouldn't be opening until at least end of April, beginning of May. And it's the middle of March now, so it's going a little bit weird. I've got blossoms on various trees, on my almond trees, and there's all sorts of buds coming in on all the other trees and everything else. And I'm hoping that we don't suddenly have a really, really sharp frost in sort of April time, middle of April time, which will then kill all of that, all of those sort of developing fruits off, which has happened before. But fingers crossed, a light frost will be fine, but not a really harsh one. But in the greenhouse, seedlings are just poking through and they're doing really well. So I will show you some of those in a minute, but I have this is my box of March seeds to sow. It is absolutely heaving. I've got some fruits and vegetables in here. I've got flowers. There's so much to get through. So I've got lettuce, all sorts of lettuce. I won't sow all the lettuce, to start with, but I will sow some now and then sow some more in about 4 weeks' time. I've got spinach. I've got other Japanese leaves, courgettes, which usually I don't actually tend to sow until April, but I can sow those. So various squashes, globe artichoke seeds, coriander, all sorts of herbs, cabbages, loads of brassicas in here. And what else? Oh, some more radishes, which I did sow some radishes a couple of weeks ago. I think actually it might have been last weekend actually, so they haven't started to appear yet. There's some carrots in here as well. Peas you can start sowing now. What else have I got in here? Oh, there's loads. Oh, nasturtiums are a great thing because you can eat the flowers. The flowers are quite peppery, but they also help the bees come into your garden, therefore pollinating beans and peas and all those sorts of things. So they're great and they look fabulous. So if you can dot some nasturtiums around your vegetable and fruit patch, then that will be brilliant. So, and sunflowers as well, you can start those off now. So I am going to show you how to sow one of those because all the rest need to be sown in exactly the same way. So there's no point me showing you how to sow every single one because we will be here for hours and hours if I showed you how to sow all of those ones. And I will, once I've finished with you, I will see how many I can sow today because I do have to go out in a bit. And then I will gradually over the course of this week start to sow the rest of them. And hopefully by the end of next weekend, then I will have sown all of those ones. Fingers crossed, but we'll soon see. So I will show you how to sow one of those now, and then we will go on and we will look at and see how the seedlings or the seeds that I sowed a while back, how they're getting on. What I have got here is one of my seed trays, the one that's got the little 5 sections. I've just put a load of multi-purpose compost on there. Just sprinkle it on, let them fill up, and then when the sections are full up, then you can push them down. Okay, and that way they will go down, the compost will be pushed down enough, which is the perfect distance that your seeds will need to go down. So it's all very good stuff, you know. So here we are. It's quite windy outside actually at the moment. We still, well, I suppose they always do say March winds, don't they? But we're nice and cozy in the greenhouse. So there's our sections all pushed down. Now, as I say, all the seeds that I've got here, I will take photos and stick them onto Facebook and my blog so that you can actually see exactly which ones I've got. But the ones that I will sow directly into these seed trays, I've got lettuces, I have got, I'll flick through these, rocket, spinach, Japanese. These look really interesting. I'm really looking forward to these. Basically Japanese leaves. Pumpkins I will show you slightly differently, and the other squashes. Artichokes, coriander, sorrel, mint, fennel, asparagus, and all the brassicas, so that's kale, cabbage, all those sorts of things. I will show you the peas ever so slightly differently, and all of the flower seeds that I've got here, I'm going to sow exactly the same as I would these ones. So I've got some lettuce here. Now this is red-leaved lettuce. I like picking, when I sow the lettuce, I'll sow it and then I'll just pick the leaves as and when I want them. I don't let them get into big mature plants, because that way they're all ready at the same time, and obviously you can only eat a certain amount of lettuce, so picking off the leaves I always find tends to work a little bit better, and you get more, they last a little longer. So lettuce seeds all look the same, although they sometimes are slightly different in colour. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle quite liberally the seeds on top of the compost here. You see, if they get too close to each other, it doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is, once these germinate, is I'm going to take little sections and pop them up into the sort of the square pots that I use, these square pots. And then that way I will then, once they're big enough to go outside, I will then put them outside. So it doesn't matter if they're really close together, I'm not going to separate them all out. So that's those there, and then all I'm going to do once I've sown those is I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more compost over the top, nice and lightly. Just level it off a little bit. I will put a label in there, don't worry. I know people do worry, they say, oh, you didn't label it. I will label it. So that's one lot done. And what I will do is I will do another lot of lettuce in most probably about 2 or 3 weeks time, and I will sow them exactly the same way, and I will keep sowing lettuce seeds every 2 or 3 weeks, and that way I will have a nice supply throughout the summer. With regards to the pumpkins, courgettes, all those ones, the cucurbits and the peas, I will sow slightly differently, and let me show you how I'm going to do those. What I'm going to do, I will sow all of those ones in exactly the same way, so I will just show you one. I will get one of my little square pots like this, and I filled it with multi-purpose compost. Push it down so that it's nice and firm, and then what you need to do is you need to get your finger and you need to make a nice little hole in the middle. Now push your finger down to this, your main knuckle, so all of that section there has to go in the soil. Okay, so it will be about just over 1 inch deep. Now pumpkin and courgette seeds and squash seeds all look very, very similar. They're all from the same family. Some may well be slightly larger than others, but they are, I hope you can see, let me see if I can, Can you see that? Oops, there we go. There. Oh, that sort of shape. Can you see? There we are. Now when you plant these, you don't want to plant them flat like that, because the water will get on top of them and it will sit on top of them, and it will go, the likelihood of them going mouldy is quite high. So when you plant them and you sow them, you need to sow them so that they're like this, and that way there's only a small area that the water can sit on. So you sorry, let me just undo this. I'm getting quite warm in here actually. So that if you sow your seed that way, it's less likely to rot. So that's what we need to do. So once you've made your hole, you need to get your seed and you put it down into the hole, so it's that way, not that way. And then all you need to do is to just cover it up, just like that. Now you can put 2 seeds in together. In fact, I think I will, so I'll have to go and find that one, and then I can put 2 seeds in together. That's with the all the pumpkins and all that lot. Whereas if you're sowing seeds, you can pea seeds or mange 2, then you can do those directly outside. However, I am not going to, because the mice have started to come in the garden again, and I need to check the perimeter again and make sure that they can't get in. And any of the ones that are in, I need to see if I can get rid of those, because if I sow my peas in the bed, then they tend to eat them and run off with them. But when they reach a certain size, then they're okay. So what I'm going to do is, again, I've got this little pot here and I've put multi-purpose compost in it. I've pushed it down, and again I'm going to make a nice hole, and I'm going to push my finger in down to my main knuckle, and in that hole I will put about 4 seeds. 4 pea seeds or mange 2 seeds. Now the ones I've got here, I love these. These are sugar snap peas. I tend to find that mange 2, they will go over really quite quickly within a couple of days. And I like sugar snap peas. They have a little bit more of a window where you can pick them. Now they all look the same. They just look like dried up peas, dried up frozen peas. If you want to, you can soak them for 24 hours before, just to soften up the outer shell, but you don't have to. So what I'm going to do is, I've got 4 seeds here, and I'm just going to drop all 4 of them in there together, just in that hole together, and then just cover it up. And that's those. If you want to do north, south, west and east, then you can, but there's no harm in them. They don't mind being grown closer together. If you are growing them directly outside, then I would suggest that again that you do 2 or 3, maybe if you wanted to do 4 seeds together, then you can. Again, they need to be sown about 1 inch to 1.5 inches underneath the soil, and I would space your little groups of seeds about 4 inches apart from each other. So that's the seeds. I will get on and do a load of those, but before I do, let me give you a little tour of the greenhouse, show you how the seedlings are getting on and how everything is growing. If we look in this one tray here, we can see that the peppers are starting to germinate. These were sown about 4 weeks ago, but it was a little bit cold for a little while, and they wanted to wait until it warmed up a little bit, so they're starting to grow. They won't need to be pricked out maybe for another couple of weeks, I don't think, but just be very, very careful when you prick these out. Now, peppers and chilies, they don't like being, when you do prick them out, you've got to be very, very careful. So I will show you those because they're slightly different from everything else. If we move to this next tray here we've got the cosmos. This is another one of my jobs this week to do. I need to prick these out, and behind them, if you can see, There they are, just these little things here. These are some aubergines that have just started to pop up. There's a load more at the back there, which is brilliant. I'm so chuffed with those. And there's another one of my little chilies there growing, so that's those. This is the tray that I've just sown the lettuce in, so that's no good. If we go over here, we can see loads going on in here. There's some tomatoes just starting to germinate here. They're growing really well. These are cucumbers. These are the Louisa. The Spanish cucumbers haven't decided they don't want to come up quite yet, but these are the melons here, and you can see there's one there. The soil is moving here and it's moving there, so there'll be another one coming up soon. So these are growing really well. In fact, actually, there's another one there, and I can see one just starting there. So the soil is moving on the melons, which is lovely. If we go across to this tray here, I've got lots of flowers here. These are my African marigolds here. I've got some aquiledias, which two lots seem to be doing really well. The blue star don't seem to be doing particularly well, and at the very back, that's where my lobelia got nibbled, and they seem to have suffered quite a lot. So they are coming up again, but very slowly, so we'll have to look at those. And in here, these need a little bit of a water. I've got to do a big water. You can see there's some more tomato. That's not a tomato. There's some more tomato seedlings coming up here, and there's some sun gold which are coming up there. I hope you can see those, but the tomatoes are starting to germinate, so everything in the greenhouse is on its way. In the other greenhouse here, this is my geraniums. Again, all of these need a good old water as well, because the last couple of days have been really quite warm, and because the door has been closed in here, it's got really quite warm and lovely. But you can see that lots of these geraniums, they're getting new shoots on them, which are fabulous. The ones that haven't, I will go through, and if they come up quite easily like this one does, you can see that there's no root on the bottom of that one. So I will get rid of the ones that haven't started to shoot out. But these are doing really well. I'm very pleased with these. So yes, now let's go outside and see how everything is getting on outside. Now this is the fruit bed. Yes, I know there are some daffodils in there. They were there's a grape that is there, and they were in there, so I couldn't take them out, but I just think that they're lovely. But as you can see, I know it's a vegetable, but that's the rhubarb, which has suddenly I don't force this, I just let it grow on its own accord, but that is just suddenly in the last week has just really taken off. We've got loads of strawberries here. I still need to sort out the ones at the back. The raspberries, you can see that they are starting to come up beautifully, and I've got some gooseberries down here, and I've got some currant bushes here, and they are starting to come up. And over in this corner here is my goji berry, which is going completely mental. But yes, it is. I just keep an eye on it and make sure that it behaves itself. But that bed is doing really well. Those of you who wanted to see the chickens, there they are. They're very happy little souls. When I open the door, they come running out. Yes, I know you want to come and play, but just not at the moment. Yes, darling, I know. And this is a new bed that I had the compost heaps on, but I had to get rid of those because some rats decided that they wanted to make them a home. But I'm going to make this sort of like a cottagey, gardeny area, and at the back I've got a new tree, which is an apple tree. And there, as you can see, there's the tulip, which is just about to start opening, which is absolutely crazy. And in here, I've got my garlic growing, which I sowed in the autumn, which you can see is growing absolutely amazingly. I'm so pleased with that. And then there are a couple of rows of broad beans, which you can see, which are starting to come up. And then I've got a row of parsnips, which I only sowed last weekend. And then I've got a row of radishes, and none of those are starting to come up yet, but hopefully fairly fairly soon they will start to come up. Now the last thing that I'm going to show you today is the potatoes. Potatoes have been chitting quite happily in their little trays. I have 5 different varieties. I have some first earlies, some seconds and some lates, or some main crop. And you need to let your potatoes chit because they need to grow some little short stumpy shoots. Okay, now potatoes can be planted outside in the ground anytime from sort of beginning to mid-March all the way through to sort of the middle of May. But the sooner you get them in, the better, because then they've got a longer time to grow. So it's the middle of March, so I'm going to get them in. Now I'm not going to plant them all in the raised bed because it will take up all of the space. The main crop I am going to plant in one of the raised beds. I'll most probably do about 2 or 3 rows, and my main crop are Sarpomera, and the other ones, the first and the second earlies, I tend to find do better in one of these big buckets. I'm not sure how many litres this bucket is. I don't know, but it's quite big anyway. I think it's about a 40 litre, I have a feeling, but I may well be wrong. So sowing them in buckets or out in the soil are slightly different. So let me just run through how I do mine. What I'm going to do is I am going to lay the main crop ones out. I'm going to have to take these little solar lights out because if they're under the potatoes they won't work. So I'm just going to place my seed potatoes on top of the soil. I will place them about 12 inches apart from each other. If you can give them a little bit more space, then do. So in this size bed here I can get 5. Now if you've got more than 1 row, then I would suggest leaving, if you can, about 15 inches between each one, which will most probably be about there. So I will just put them all on the soil to start with, like that, and then I will get my long handled bulb planter, which is absolutely brilliant. I love this thing. And all I'm going to do is, where I've put a potato, I'm just going to make a hole, which this bulb planter will actually push it down about 6 inches. Pull the planter out and it will create a hole, and then just drop your spud in. Okay, don't worry about covering it over quite yet, because when we've done them all, what we're going to do is we will just give it a quick rake over, and it will then cover up any holes that we've made. So this is the ones outside. Give them about 12 inches between them. If you can do 15, then that will be great. But if you're doing more than 1 row, try and get about 18 inches if you can. If not, 15 inches will do between them. So I will do the other ones in a bit, but I will just show you that 1 row. Okay, and then all we need to do is to get the rake, which is somewhere, I can't remember, oh, it's over in another bed. And I will just rake over, don't want that, that's a weed. Just rake over and it just fills up any of the holes. If you've got some horse manure, then you can stick a load of that on top and they'll be very happy. Now, let me show you how I'm going to plant the other ones in a bucket. In the bucket, all I've put is a load of multi-purpose compost. If you want to put a little bit of manure down the bottom, then you can. If you want to put some special feed in there, if you've got your own sort of way of, extra little feed, then please do mix that in. Everybody is slightly different, but I personally find that just using multi-purpose compost, if you want to use some potash, and I just feed them with seaweed fertiliser as they start to grow, and I usually find that that's more than enough. So I have half filled this bucket, And what I'm going to do in here, this variety of potatoes that I've got here, these are called Foremost, and they're first earlies. You can see that they're starting to go a little bit wrinkly, but that's absolutely fine. And again, they've got some lovely short stumpy shoots to them. Can you see those? They're absolutely brilliant. I'm so chuffed with those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant, I think, 3 in each bucket, and I will just put them nice and evenly like that, and then I will push them down as far as they will go, just like that. And then all I will do after that is I will then fill this bucket up with more multi-purpose compost. Ooh. If you want to grow them in potato bags, you can buy those. There's all sorts of things that you can grow your potatoes in, but I like the buckets because the buckets are nice and sturdy and you can use them time and time again. So fill it right to the top. I've got lots to do, so I'm going to have to go and get some more compost. Break up any large bits, just smooth it round, and that's that one done. So I've got lots more to do, and when I've done these, obviously I'm not going to leave them on here, I will put them down on the path down here right next to the raised bed. I did that last year and they got on really well, and then when you come to harvest them you just tip them out, and then all of this will just go on this bed here, which is brilliant. So that's my potatoes. Now I do have a few seeds here that will need to be sown directly out into the ground, but I will tell you how I'm going to do those. Now I've got some spring onions here, which are fabulous. Excuse me. And all you need to do is you need to, the area that you want to grow your spring onions in, just fork it over, make sure that you haven't got any large stones or any weeds in there. Just remove anything that shouldn't be there. Make a tiny little sort of trough about 1 centimetre deep or 1/2 inch deep, and then just sprinkle your spring onion seeds in that trough and then just cover them over. And again, I've got some turnips here. Now these you sow directly outside. These are summer ones, so if you sow these now, then you could be harvesting them in June time. And again, sow them exactly the same way as you would sow the spring onions, but just make sure that you don't sow them too close together because obviously they need to swell up. If you are growing more than 1 row of these, then I would suggest allowing about 9 inches between rows. And carrots, I will show you those next month because I'll have lots of other ones to do next month. And I can't remember if I showed you radishes, but radishes sow exactly the same as you have the spring onions. Now, when you do sow radishes, don't sow them, oh, so difficult to say, radishes, don't sow them all together, because I would suggest sowing a short row and then a month later sowing another row, unless of course you eat them all the time, because once they've gone over and they've gone to seed, then they'll get really hard in the middle. Radishes are best early on in the year and later in the year, unless of course you have a very cool area in your garden. They don't really like the heat, so they just won't do very well. That's what I tend to find. But I'm sure I will be sowing more radishes in a couple of weeks' time, because as I say, I sowed some last weekend, and I expect I will be sowing some, and then I can show you those, and I'll show you the carrots as well. Okay, well, as you can see, there's a huge amount to do, so I'd better stop talking and I had better start to sort out this massive box of seeds. Well, I hope you found what I've shown you interesting, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.